Hello and welcome. It's a new week. I'm running a little late on my Wednesday graphic novel reviews as I was sick over the weekend. Ended up in the ER actually. That said, let's chat comic books, graphic novels. That's why I record these. My name is Andrew Ace. Hello. And this is my graphic novel library. I used to work at a comic book shop, and during my time there, managed to put together a bit of a collection. Close to 26, 27 shelves now of graphic novels. And as I go through and read new books that I find and buy, adding into my collection, often for ones that I've missed before, or just even, rereading classics, I've been recording my reviews and sharing them with you. So while these aren't new books, they are new for me, and maybe they're ones that you haven't heard of or haven't read before. So, let's get started. First up this week, and this is maybe a little reflective of a title, it's the plastic covering on the sheets. Looks like this. Much less fancy though, much less fancy. So Ultimate X-Men Volume 4 is Brian Michael Bendis coming on board the title with art by David Finch. Now you'll recognize both Bendis and Finch's names if you're either a Marvel reader in the last 5 years or DC, since Finch just, in the last 5 years made the switch over after having an exclusive contract with Marvel. So art is amazing, storytelling is great. My only thing is, and this is about midway through the run, and it's beginning to feel a little stale. It doesn't have quite the snap freshness that I normally associate with an Ultimate title. And, this definitely played into them rebooting the series a bit with Ultimatum, and then what has followed since. And maybe rebooting is not the right word, because that sounds like they did away with continuity. Instead, they keep trying to up the ante with more greater apocalyptic situations that redefine the Ultimate Universe. But if you're a fan of Brian Michael Bendis or David Finch, this is still a great read, and it is the X-Men. So I know for a lot of you out there, that's reason enough to check out the title. It does also collect, in this case, the thicker Ultimate X-Men collection, 2 graphic novels worth of material, and that's issues 34 to 45. So, next up, Captain America Volume 3, Ice. Now this is volume 4 or 5, you can look it up. One of the best places to find any information in any graphic novel is in the copyright section. So just on that first page usually, it's volume 4 in terms of run/series. Ed Brubaker's series, it was volume 5, and that took place not long after this. Again, it seems like I'm knocking my Marvel books, even some of my favorite heroes, Captain America being my #1 guy. This just wasn't, though, a gripping read for me. It does have some earlier Jay Lee art, which I know, they're very devout fans out there of his work. But for me, otherwise, it just was a slightly stale storyline, kind of challenging. Was Captain America really, buried in the ice by the exploding ship, a la the myth and legend that we all know, Baron Zemo, and flying over the North Atlantic, Bucky dying, that of course Brubaker then tackles in his own run. And this storyline presupposes the idea that maybe the US government buried Captain America, that he wasn't enough of a soldier for them, wasn't enough of a killing machine, and instead they put him on ice to have him sort of be discovered by the Avengers years later. I don't know, given that much of Brubaker's classic run that does come later, and obviously Chuck Austen, the writer, couldn't have known about, it still does feel a bit of an older, out of place, almost out of continuity storyline at this point. And if you're a Captain America fan, and I'm one of the biggest, but I would suggest starting with Winter Soldier and taking it from there. So, other books I read this week that maybe weren't quite the big two. First up is American Vampire Volume 6. Now this is produced by Vertigo, which is obviously a darker publication or offshoot of DC Comics. But Scott Snyder, Raphael Albuquerque, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and maybe I'm not, they have done a phenomenal job with this series. When it first came out, it actually had Stephen King on board, and I remember I was actually working at the comic book shop and trying to sell this to people, and neither the pitch line of vampires nor even Stephen King was really, connecting in with readers. But anytime anyone even gave the book a try, they came back so positive that in a way that then spread it through the comic book store and the community that we were part of, that Scott Snyder, who then went on to do Batman and a lot of other work for DC, was a phenomenal writer, and that this was a unique telling of a vampire mythology that is worth checking out. Volume 6 is a collection of, shorts by a number of different artists, along with one sort of wrap-up tale. The idea was that this book kind of stands as a stopgap from Series 1 or Season 1, or I'm not exactly sure what they're calling it, but the first part of American Vampire, and they've now cycle 2, second cycle, have started it up again. And it is a phenomenal series. And however they want to term it or break it down, it doesn't really matter, as it's an amazing read. Definitely worth checking out, American Vampire. So, last book of the week, and that's not to say least by any means, is The Sixth Gun, Volume 4. Volume 5. This is Cullen Bunn, Brian Hurt. I apologize for missing the names there. And phenomenal read. A supernatural western. I actually brought up this book, or this series, a little bit earlier in one of my reviews. So I'm not going to give it quite the same time, probably because I've talked a bit extra longer on those other books already anyway. But if you're a fan of supernatural, of westerns, of just great storytelling that have fantastic twists and turns, then The Sixth Gun is a series for you. This version, this volume, sees the main characters trapped in the spirit lands, and the creative team's take on the Wendigo myth is really exciting. I'm myself Canadian, familiar with the mythology, but I think anyone in North America who studied Native American mythology will be at least somewhat familiar with it. Or if you've, say, watched the show Supernatural, some of the other TV series of late have been adapting the same, the mythological monster, the Wendigo, who hunts in winter, always hungry. And in this volume of The Sixth Gun, Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt come up with a really good take on that. So guys, another week, 4 more graphic novels. And next week, I'm going to go back to a theme series for a little bit, just so that I can, keep reading enough books to keep up with these reviews. I'll see you all then. Cheers.